I can't believe this is happening right now. President Biden is making 3 huge mistakes, and we're about to see some serious stuff hit the fan. The deep state that is controlling President Biden have essentially backed themselves into a corner, and this is devastating for the United States. We're going to get to these 3 mistakes here in a minute, but first, we have a couple of big pieces of news that I want to get to, which will shape the U.S. for years to come. Over the past few hours, while they want you to be enjoying Super Bowl, festivities, President Biden and the UK government have quietly ramped up massive attacks against targets in Yemen.
Earlier, President Biden had warned the US would respond if the Iran-backed group continued what he called outrageous behavior in attacking shipping in the Red Sea.
They started dropping bombs at 3 a.m. in Yemen. Remember, this is one of the poorest countries in the world, and yet the United States and UK are failing, and they will lose. They are losing in this battle. Saudi Arabia has found out over the course of a decade that you can't beat Yemen, by the way. They've tried, and they failed. Yemen, it turns out, will never give up. Biden's first huge mistake is launching attacks against Yemen because he cannot win. This is asymmetrical warfare. We bring in massive destroyers, and the Houthi rebels have rubber boats and Kalashnikovs. Guess who's winning? Yeah, the guys on the rubber boats. Ex-CIA analyst Larry Johnson told me this week that asymmetrical warfare is precisely the reason we will lose unless we drop a nuke on them or send millions of Americans to fight and die there.
There's nothing the U.S. and the UK can do to stop them, short of dropping a nuke on the country or coming up with 2 or 3 million men to invade the country.
And now the Houthis are threatening Biden. Stop these attacks right now. Stop supporting Israel, or we will cut the internet underneath the ocean. That would be devastating to Western economies if that happens. And what did Biden and Congress do? Well, they spent the weekend trying to send $95 billion to Ukraine and Israel. The Houthis saying we will attack Americans at these bases, which are illegally occupying countries in Africa and the Middle East. And of course, during the Super Bowl, they show, they show the forces in these different bases around the Middle East. They're watching the Super Bowl, having some food. Right? We're supposed to celebrate that. They are sitting ducks. Daniel McAdams, who points out that Biden is using these Americans as bait right now, tripwires, in order to create more war.
It's no longer tenable. We've had 180 some attacks on the U.S. Outposts out there in the last few months, and hundreds of people injured, and as we see now, some killed. That will get even worse. This is an untenable situation.
Biden is talking out of both sides of his mouth. On the one hand, he's sending billions more to Netanyahu to bomb Gaza, but then he tells us at a press conference that what Netanyahu is doing over there is over the top. His words, over the top. And women and children are being slaughtered. So which is it then?
The conduct of the response in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip, has been over the top.
Talk is cheap, but your money is flowing right to Israel, and Yemen knows it, exactly what you're doing, America, and Americans are going to be killed as a result of it. This week, we saw the clearest sign yet of just how bad it's going for President Biden. We're watching a naval war unfold in the Red Sea right before our eyes. Houthi rebels attacked the U.S. and UK ships in the Red Sea to devastating effect. The UK destroyer Diamond was hit by a Houthi rebel rockets. And then laughingly, the British military said it needed to go back to England because of, quote, technical problems. So that's what we're calling a rocket attack now? Technical problems? The Houthis also struck this cargo ship Morningtide. And what's amazing about this is that the British tried to pretend like they didn't own the ship so that Yemen would leave it alone. They actually changed the registration to Chinese owner in order to make it through.
This is the maritime version of transgenderism. I identify as Chinese.
Attacking Yemen is his first great mistake. And that carries over into his next great mistake, which is showing the world that Europe is not our friend. His attack of Yemen, his support of the assault in Gaza have alienated friends in Europe that we had. The UK is only country supporting the military assault in the Middle East right now, the only one. We blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. And Germany did nothing, but now their economy is in ruins. So we've alienated Europe. Biden even warned Netanyahu about the attacks in Gaza 3 months ago, telling him your indiscriminate bombings of civilians in Gaza is alienating Europe. He told Netanyahu this. He didn't take his own medicine. Now Europe is turning its back on the United States. Biden's greatest mistake, though, is how he brought Russia and China closer than ever and distracted the world from China's economic meltdown, which no one is talking about right now. His sanctions against Russia have only hurt the United States, and they've made Russia stronger than ever. Last week, journalist Tucker Carlson was in Moscow. He saw firsthand how Russia has been helped by these idiot sanctions that have driven prices through the roof in the United States and Europe, while making Russia stronger than ever. Tucker traveled all over the area looking at grocery stores in Moscow to study their prices, how much food they have. He was stunned to learn that the stores are fully stocked with fresh food, great prices. Tell that right now to Americans being crushed under inflation, all thanks to Biden's sanctions against Russia. Putin in his interview said that what you are doing in the United States, you're shooting yourselves in the foot. Don't you have anything better to do than send billions of dollars to Ukraine while your borders are wide open and $34 trillion in debt?
Don't you have anything better to do? You have issues on the border, issues with migration, issues with the national debt, more than $33 trillion. You have nothing better to do, so you should fight in Ukraine?
China, meanwhile, is melting down economically, and desperate people do desperate things. This week, stocks lost $7 trillion in value in Hong Kong Stock Exchange. China's real estate bubble is bursting at the seams.
Every single property developer in China that's public or listed is in default, bankruptcy today.
Biden's blunders are playing right into China's hands. As the economic collapse intensifies, China is going to look to become more hostile to the West, more independent, hold its cards to its chest, withhold minerals from the West. It's already revealed to us just how this will play out. Look at the rare earth elements. They have now cornered the mining supply to use as leverage against the United States. As Barron's points out, China has a chokehold on critical minerals right now. They will not hesitate to look at which metals the West has neglected and desperately needs, and they will use those next as bargaining chips. We're talking lithium, uranium, but I believe I know which one is the nearest and dearest to the West right now, and that is nickel. Yep, nickel. And we're going to talk more about that in a second because that's the news update part of today's video. Now, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, which is tied directly to Biden's blunders in the Middle East and the partnership of Russia and China right now. In light of everything I've just shown you, if you're an investor, you need to pay close attention to what I'm about to show you next. We've covered many national security issues on this channel over the many years. And now I want to focus on crucial commodities that to me are crucial to national security. And the Biden administration is totally ignoring this because they've totally shut down mining and farmed it out across the world. So in the past, I've highlighted how the United States hardly mines any uranium, even though it's the world's largest consumer of uranium. And the same is true with lithium. The mother lode, though, is nickel, which the United States needs in massive quantities right now, and we don't have it. I'm going to show you what Elon Musk has to say about nickel in a second, but before we go over that, I've taken months in putting together a lot of facts about how globalization has drained America's mining security. I've shown you how the Clintons, of course, farmed out uranium to Russia, and it's left us in the hands of our enemies. I've shown you how these facts here on the show. Now, I'm not saying they are our enemies. I'm saying that's how we perceive them. The United States openly declares these people our enemies, and we're relying on them for all of these minerals. It makes no sense. So that's exactly why I want to show you this company, Alaska Energy Metals. Here is their ticker on your screen. This company is completely under the radar, exploring for nickel right now in the same area as another company whose big investors are Ray Dalio, Richard Branson, Jack Ma, Michael Bloomberg. Yeah, this is as serious as it gets, so let's get cracking. I want to lay out what I found here for you guys, okay? Fact number one. Indonesia accounted for around 30% of the total mining production of nickel, followed by the Philippines at 12%. Russia and China are the next biggest producers, and the United States is completely dependent on nickel imports from these countries. Senators and congressmen are also pushing to ban Indonesia and Philippines for our mining resources because they mine dirty, very dirty. I'm talking sediment runoff into drinking water, very, very bad, and they have no oversight into how they actually mine. So Congress is saying enough with Indonesia, enough with the Philippines. So we need to go to Russia and China. Fact number two, the United States has one nickel mine, and it actually exports that nickel to Canada instead of keeping it for ourselves. Are we crazy? And then fact number three, in the West, around 65% of nickel consumed is for stainless steel. Superalloys account for 12%, and batteries only make up around 6%. Soon, though, EV demand under the Biden administration for nickel will equal stainless steel demand. There is, on average, 29 kilograms of nickel required for every EV battery, 5 times as much as lithium. And not to mention the need for nickel in grid-scale renewable energy sources for storage, right? I can go down the list, and I can give you 25 additional facts that I've gone over here in the nickel industry and why it's crucial to make sure the United States-based companies start advancing these projects at home instead of relying on China and Russia to get our nickel. Again, regardless of what you feel about Russia or China, it doesn't matter. We need to be developing them ethically and responsibly here in North America. Here's what the richest people in the world think about nickel. Elon Musk says, please mine more nickel. He's calling on mining companies right now to boost production right now. If you still don't understand how big this is, look elsewhere. But if you're with me, let's dive into Alaska Energy Metals because this is truly a unique business. In the 1990s, one of the largest nickel companies in the world discovered nickel mineralization in Alaska. Their thesis was that an area in Alaska that was similar to Russia's Norilsk region, where the mother of all nickel reserve sites sits. They were right about that. They saw the comparisons. The project changed ownership a couple of times, while $30 million in exploration costs and data collection were gathered. But get this, Greg Beischer, who led that original team in the 1990s, discovered this Nikolai project. He realized that the land was up for grabs, and then he bought it for just a little over $1 million. So let me repeat that in English, okay? The previous owner spent $30 million to get where they are now. Then Greg comes along, he's the founder and the CEO of Alaska Energy Metals, and then he buys the asset for $1.4 million. Huge, huge, right? 30 million, he buys it for 1 million. Since then, the company has been drilling. They just announced a resource to the tune of 1.5 billion pounds of nickel under the ground. So check this out. This is a huge nickel discovery. If you're an investor, you need to pay attention to this. With all the drilling that was done in summer 2023, a major increase to the metal inventory could soon be coming to the market. And that would make Elon Musk very, very happy. And before I invest in these companies, I always want to know who is behind them. Well, the board of directors includes a former U.S. senator that has been a great proponent of resource development projects in his home state of Alaska, and the former commissioner of natural resources for Alaska, not to mention an outstanding geological exploration team. These are American patriots doing what we need to be doing in the United States. So what's the bottom line? Well, Alaska Energy Metals, here's the ticker on your screen. They own a nickel resource in Alaska that they bought for $1.4 million after the previous owners poured $30 million into it. And they have a strong team and a great asset. And the company is poised for success. And you should be doing your own homework on this company as soon as you can, in my particular view right now. I'll have links to the nickel report in the description so you can actually study this for yourself. You can see how we are shooting ourselves in the foot if we don't start expanding our mining capacity in the United States right now. I'll have links to their website and everything you need in the description below. You can do your own homework, and we will see you next time, folks.